Hey, welcome to another video. So today we're going to be going into the Sith god Darth and Dadu. But before we begin, please be sure to join the Discord linked in the description if you want to be part of the community. Otherwise, let's jump straight into it. Darth and Dadu came from the deep core world of Praketh and lived some period after the 100-year darkness. Over time, he grew in wisdom and developed considerable mastery over the dark side of the Force. He studied the ways of the original Lords of the Sith, namely the bizarre rituals of one known as Carnus Mur, and built the foundation of his powers upon Mur's teachings. Though Mur himself delved into the craft of darkside healing, and Dadu was interested in more than that. He wanted to find ways to cheat death entirely. He was ultimately successful too, and found a method of preserving the consciousness of his mind, should his physical body perish. And Dadu also learned the secret of transferring his essence into another vessel, should the need arise. He eventually rose above his peers to claim the position of Dark Lord of the Sith, and reigned from their ancestral homeworld of Korriban. As Darth and Dadu grew in strength and stature, so too did he grow in fear. He came to believe that his subordinates coveted the knowledge which he had achieved and the force abilities in which he had become proficient. Because Dadu refused to share his intelligence, the Sith Lords banded together and plotted to first take his Sith secrets for themselves, and then to destroy him. And Dadu was not blind to the machinations of his distractors, and grew increasingly wary of them. He felt any further hesitation on his part would result in his enemies successfully overtaking him. Darth and Dadu was soon betrayed and overthrown by his followers, and forced to abscond from Korriban. Prior to his escape, he created a false tomb on Korriban to deceive potential pursuers. When the Sith Lords realized that Dadu had fled, they searched relentlessly for him, through the Force and otherwise, but to no avail. Dadu had soundly eluded them by returning to a private stronghold on his homeworld of Praketh. However, the fear of losing all he had amassed still threatened to consume him, and because of this, he recorded a great deal of his knowledge into Sith spellbooks and scrolls that he stored within the belly of his fortress. The sum of his wisdom, including the details of his essence transferring technique, was stored within a personal Sith holocron of his own creation. Darth and Dadu conquered Praketh and beget progeny, whom he dubbed the Malevolence, and trained to use the dark side of the Force. Because of his dark side abilities, Dadu's lifespan far exceeded natural years, and he ruled Praketh for many centuries. His followers came to revere him as their God King, an immortal being whom they believed would reign supreme forever. The collapse of the hyperspace lanes, which led to Praketh, result in the isolation of its inhabitants, and allowed the Dark Lord to maintain unfettered dominion over the deep core world. However, paranoia caused Dadu to still believe that his enemies would eventually arrive to steal his lore. He entombed himself, surrounded by his books and scrolls, content with the idea that he would carry his secrets into death with him. His holocron was kept inside of his sarcophagus, with his physical remains, and both stayed hidden for thousands of years after his passing. Meanwhile, Dadu's Malevolence cult continued to immerse themselves in the dark side, while maintaining worship of their God King. Dadu mandated that they guard his tomb and fortress, patiently awaiting the day where he would resurrect himself to lead them once again. Long after Dadu's death in 4400 BBY, a young Jedi named Freedom Nad had his first brush with the dark side upon slaying his master, Mada Tremaine. He then resolved to become the most powerful Sith Lord in existence. At some point, he came across Dadu's holocron and unlocked its secrets for immortality. Following the end of the new Sith Wars in 1000 BBY, information regarding Darth and Dadu came into possession of the Jedi Order's Council of First Knowledge. They believed that even the most obscure record of Dadu's existence was dangerous, and attempted to eliminate all mention of his name from every possible source. Although the Council was aware of Dadu's holocron, they chose not to pursue it, deeming that a journey into the deep core was just too perilous to risk. Regardless of their best efforts, a Sith artifact broker by the name of Argil 10 acquired a reverent scroll, which gave an abbreviated account of Darth and Dadu's omnipotent sovereignty over Praketh. The manuscript was sold to the current Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Bane, who sought to obtain Ndedu's secrets of eternal life. He braved the treacherous hyperspace lanes that led to Praketh in search of Darth Ndedu's holocron. His quest was ultimately successful. He found the device within Ndedu's tomb and learned all of its secrets, but subsequently lost it after he had been captured by agents of Sarah, princesses of the planet Done. Ndedu's holocron would not long remain in her possession either. It was again stolen by the dark Jedi Set Hearth, who also mastered Ndedu's essence transfer ability and used it to live for centuries afterwards. By the year 21 BBY, Ndedu's ancient secrets were still preserved in his holocron on Korriban, until it and its contents were sought by a Sith Lord under the guise of Darth Tyrannus. Rather than retrieve the device himself, Lord Tyrannus sent 2 of his servants to Korriban, the Dark Jedi Tolskor and an undercover Kiffer Jedi Master named Quinlan Voss. The 2 battled each other in the Valley of the Dark Lords for possession of Ndedu's holocron, with Voss ultimately proving the victor and gaining much favor with Tyrannus. Satisfied that the holocron was now in his custody, Tyrannus activated the pyramidal artifact to manifest a lightsaber-wielding avatar of Ndedu's likeness, from which Tyrannus hoped to obtain the might of the ancient Sith. Also, in reward for Voss's success, Tyrannus revealed another of the many mysteries contained within Ndedu's holocron, a blood-shined lightsaber crystal. The same one had powered Ndedu's own weapon during his time among the living. The crystal was gifted to Voss by Tyrannus, and the Sith Lord kept the holocron for himself. Nearly 40 years later, the holocron of Jedi Master Asli Crimson was discovered in Bast Castle, the former fortress of the Sith Lord Darth Vader on the planet Vijun. While Crimson's holocron was primarily for the education of young Jedi, it provided some information about Ndedu, suggesting that he was the first Sith to use the Darth title. By 40 ABY, research into the origins of the Darth title had also been conducted by a suspected Sith sympathizer named Ingo Wavlod. He surmised that Darth may have been derived from the Rakata word Daritha, meaning emperor. He also touched upon the possibility of it stemming from a Rakata phrase, Darta, which translated into victory over death. By 137 ABY, a new Sith Order had claimed sovereignty over the galaxy, created by a fallen Jedi named Asherad Het. During his progression down the path of the dark side, Het had been captured and tortured by the extragalactic Yuuzhan Vong species, who implanted their Yorick Coal slave seeds in him. Though able to combat the effects of the seeds through his growing strength in the dark side, Het was slowly losing his battle with them. He eventually assumed that the mantle of Dark Lord under the moniker of Darth Krayt, and created his One Sith Order. However, he feared that the Yuuzhan Vong seeds would consume him before he was able to fully impose his will over the galaxy. Krayt's own strength and wisdom had proven insufficient in eradicating his infestation, and he sought advice from the personal collection of the Sith artifacts and lore on how to do so. One of the objects in his possession was Darth Ndedu's holocron, and from it, Krayt learned that after Ndedu's death, his mind had survived to maintain control over his body. Obsessed with acquiring this skill, Krayt repeatedly attempted to glean Ndedu's expertise from the holocron, none of which its gatekeeper would yield. In his last endeavor, Krayt accessed the holocrons of the deceased Dark Lords Darth Nihilus and Darth Bane, along with Ndedu's. He was repeatedly rebuked by their gatekeepers, and held in contempt by the ancient Sith for diluting the potency of the dark side by dividing it between the members of his order. Darth Ndedu and his fellow Dark Lords mocked Krayt, exposing his fear of being consumed by his Yuuzhan Vong slave seeds. Together, the gatekeepers of Ndedu's and Bane's holocrons turned their power on Krayt to bring about that which scared him most. They caused the Vondum crab armor in which he was clad to consume him. Unwilling to succumb to what they perceived as his destiny, Krayt managed to exercise enough control through the Force to deactivate the holocrons and reverse the transformations set in motion by Lords Ndedu and Bane. As Krayt's health continued to deteriorate, he commissioned his most trusted advisor, the Shagrian Darth Wylock III, with the task of finding a solution to his problem. Among the many avenues he explored, Rylock consulted the holocron of Darth and Dadu, and was rejected much like his master before him. The gatekeeper's interest peaked in the midst of his refusals, however, when Rylock admitted that he knew of the stronghold on Praketh, and then offered to restore the Dark Lord to life. The simulation of Indadu entertained the idea, and allowed Krait's lore master to prove his worth by undertaking a quest into the Deep Core, in search of Indadu's keep, a mission that Indadu felt the Chagrin would not survive. Indadu's holocron guided Ryloth to the keep on Praketh, and he was immediately set upon by the Dark Lord's malevolent servants. The cultists had grown feral in their master's absence, however, and their dexterity in the Force was nothing compared to Rylock's, who was an accomplished Sith sorcerer. The Chagrin quickly defeated and killed all of Indadu's minions, save one named Gerlin, who pledged himself to Rylock in the face of defeat. Gerlin then led Rylock into the bowls of the keep, and when they could proceed no further, the Chagrin beckoned Indadu's image to reveal the entrance to his tomb, in the language of the ancient Sith. The gatekeeper spoke the words that accessed the hidden spatula, and in its center lay Indadu's sarcophagus. The Dark Lord's image suggested that Rylock should set the holocron upon the body's chest, but Rylock preferred to instead help himself to Indadu's abundance of ancient texts and scrolls. In a moment of despair, Gerlin snatched the holocron through the Force and conceded to Indadu's request. His own life force was then drained as it entered Indadu's remains, bringing the Dark Lord of the Sith to life once more. The revitalized Indadu mocked Rylock and refused to share his intellect with the Chagrin, professing that true Sith were above sharing their power. He assaulted Rylock with Force lightning, but the Chagrin absorbed the attack while professing his own capabilities. Realizing that his opponent would not be so easily bested, Indadu challenged him to a duel of Force abilities, one which Rylock accepted. The Dark Lord conjured illusions of lava and flame to overwhelm his opponent, but they were turned against him when Rylock discovered that Indadu's strength was only within his mind. He was continually berated by Rylock, who believed that Indadu deserved none of his accumulated wisdom for hiding from his adversaries. Indadu watched in horror as Rylock turned the flames against his precious books and scrolls, then ultimately onto him. Consumed by his own fears, Darth Indadu was defeated by what he perceived as real, and died a second death at the hands of Darth Rylock. His corpse was levitated by the Chagrin, who replaced it within the sarcophagus that had housed it for generations. The destruction of Indadu's horde had only been a ruse by his opponent, however. Everything remained intact, and after some time studying them, Rylock concluded that none of the material contained anything useful for his purposes. He collected several of the ancient texts before leaving Indadu's fortress for good, in search of other means by which he could save Darth Krayt. Darth Indadu was believed to possess great dark side enlightenment by the other Sith of his day, as well as those of future generations. The Jedi Order feared Darth Indadu to such a degree that the Council of First Knowledge, led by Ithorian Jedi Master Oba, attempted to eradicate any trace of his existence from all possible sources. Still, Jedi defectors and Sith alike knew of Indadu and his legendary ability to transcend death. The intrigue surrounding Indadu's power led both the Sith Lord Darth Bane and later the Dark Jedi Set Hearth on separate quests to retrieve Indadu's holocron. He was versed in the ancient language of the Sith, a talent displayed when his holocron's gatekeeper, which appeared as a heavily armored man, crowned with gold and gems, spoke to it, unlocked the door to his secret building chamber. As a master of the dark side of the Force, he created a clandestine organization in the form of the Malevolence, whose members were instructed by the Dark Lord in the ways of the Sith, lessons they in turn passed down through their generations. However, his refusal to bestow his teachings upon his fellow Sith Lords was the seed of malcontent among his peers. To this end, they planned to destroy him and claim Indadu's power as their own. His fear of losing all of what he had amassed caused him to choose death rather than part in any way with his knowledge. This was evidenced when he buried himself alive on Praketh to avoid capture, and a millennia later when he was defeated in the Force combat by Darth Rylock. As a Sith Lord, Darth Indadu respected and adhered the traditions of his predecessors. He believed that a true Sith was the master of his own destiny, and that following anything else, including the vision of another, rendered one subservient. After the revival of his flesh, Indaidu took stock of Darth Rylock, and surmised that he was inferior to the Sith apprentices trained by Indaidu and his peers thousands of years prior. Indaidu had no respect for Rylock nor the order which he belonged, and refused to assist Rylock because of it. Furthermore, because Darth Rylock served Krayt, Indaidu considered him to be a slave to Krayt's will, and beneath the respect granted to the title of Sith Lord. To Indaidu, Darth Krayt was regarded as a pretender to the Sith legacy, and a heretic unworthy of any of Indaidu's assistance. Indaidu was arrogant, quick to scorn, and reluctant to impart his teachings on those who he decided were unworthy. Titles were of no importance to him, something he brought to the attention of Darth Bane, who felt entitled to Indaidu's secrets in Bane's position as the current Dark Lord of the Sith. Indaidu was a cunning individual, and pretended to entertain the idea of sharing his secrets with Rylock if he successfully located his tomb on Praketh. In truth, Indaidu wanted to steal Rylock's life force via his holocron, and hoped that the Shargrian would be foolish enough to fall into his trap. Rylock was wiser than Indaidu expected, however, and ignored the temptations of the Dark Lord. For all his insight into the dark side, and unnatural application of its power, Indaidu was still looked upon with disdain by Rylock, when the latter realized that the Dark Lord had gone into hiding instead of facing his foes. Rylock mocked Indaidu into revealing his purported cowardice before overwhelming him with his own illusory constructs. Darth Indaidu was a master of Sith arts, and of many dark side force abilities. He displayed proficiency with telekinesis, force lightning, and the creation of illusions evidenced during his duel with Darth Rylock. The core of Darth Indaidu's doctrines were based on those of Carnus Mur, one of the exiled Dark Jedi, who became one of the original Lords of the Sith following the 100-Year Darkness. Indaidu furthered Mur's studies in the dark side healing in an attempt to circumvent death, and developed a technique which allowed his mind to live past his physical demise. Through this skill, Indaidu was able to assert control over his dead body, though his mind remained separated from it. His most coveted ability was that of essence transfer, which potentially was a means of immortality. He preserved the secrets of his abilities within a holocron of his own creation. When the device came into contact with his corpse, the life energy of the individual who placed it there was then sapped, and the Dark Lord was resurrected. According to Darth Rylock, Indaidu's true power lay not in his corporeal form, but within his mind. Indaidu believed that such power was equally effective, and that what one believed to be real would indeed manifest and be real to the beholder. The Dark Lord did wield a lightsaber in life, but he stored its crystal within his holocron upon his death. When his remains were discovered by Darth Rylock, Indaidu was not found with his lightsaber, but instead with a weapon that resembled a scepter of sorts, adorned with a large red crystal at its summit. The crystal glowed with a crimson resonance when Gerlin placed the holocron on the cadaver's chest, and it assisted in the reconstitution process of Indaidu's flesh. The crystal subsequently shattered following Indaidu's defeat in his duel with Darth Rylock, where the Dark Lord perished a second and final time. So what'd you guys think of Darth Indaidu? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join the Sith Citadel Discord if you wish to be part of the community. I have it linked in the description. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.